When I first heard about HIV, I was working as a construction worker. I was working a blue-collar job, and I went into the break room, and there was a Time magazine that had a short, brief article about a rare gay cancer that had appeared in New York City and in San Francisco. And a cold chill went down my spine because I was highly closeted at the time. And I was ready to really change my life, which I did over the course of the next several years. I was ready to stop using drugs and alcohol. I ended up coming out of the closet, leaving a woman I was married to, and ending up becoming custodial parent of my daughter. I got tested in 1987. I was absolutely petrified that I might be HIV positive because I'd had contact with somebody who turned out to be HIV positive, and we had had unprotected sex, and it came back negative. I became much more cautious about how I was dealing with HIV from that point forward. And I tested every 6 months during that time and remained negative. I was also very, very cautious in terms of my sexual liaisons to make sure that I used safer sex practices in every instance. Basically, that meant the use of condoms and minimizing fluid exchange. One of the first big bear party weekends in San Francisco, I was there, and I met a couple who wanted to play, and I went back with them to their hotel room. The dad in the couple identified himself as being HIV positive. We played with condoms anyway, and the dad suddenly pulled away and went into the bathroom. And when he came out of the bathroom, he was crying. He said the condom broke. 6 weeks later, I was HIV positive. My planning for the future at that point changed radically. It was a radical shift in how I approached life. I was the custodial parent of an 11-year-old child. At that time, I had just met the man I'm still with. We've been together now all those years. My daughter was panic-stricken about ever having to go live with her mother. Every dime, every consideration, every focus of my life was in putting money together to cover her college, to make sure that she had a life until she was 18 years old. 2 months after I tested and tested net positive, I went to my boss and I said, I know I have been very unproductive the last several months. And I want you to know it's not laziness and it's not lack of caring about this job, because I loved what I did for a living. But I've seroconverted. And this big, "6'4" straight guy came up from around his desk and wrapped his arms around me and told me, we're going to take care of you. And he has personally escorted me to the employee assistance program. And the company I worked for was radical in how they helped HIV positive employees. And they provided me with doctors, they provided me with counseling, they provided me with all kinds of resources, including resources to help my daughter. My initial involvement with people who were dying started in the 86, 87. I found out my lover at the time was HIV positive when he had been in a traffic accident, and I walked upstairs to his hospital room, and there was a giant biohazard symbol on the door at Davis Medical Center in Sacramento. That's how I found out he was positive. People all around me were dying, and I ended up transferred by my company to San Francisco in 1990, and I was living in the heart of it. People were dying constantly. Our humor became morbid and dark during those years. And my husband and I would take the Bay Area Reporter every week. And we started counting the people that we knew, acquaintances and friends that we knew in the community who had passed by reading obits. We sat down one day and we were at 260 people that we knew who had died. And my guess is that was about 1994. And we decided that we would simply stop reading the Bay Area Reporter. We just couldn't do it anymore. I realized early on after I came out of the closet that I identified strongly with the leather community. I found a real brother and sisterhood within the leather community in the Bay Area and in Sacramento. As things continued to worsen in the population at large in terms of HIV, the leather community stood up. The leather community were among the people to start screaming about getting drugs and getting medications. The leather community was the group that did continuous fundraisers to support people who were ill. The leather community as such really showed up and took care of their own and took care of the people in the community. ACTA played an incredibly important role in how we were perceived because people were angry and we weren't willing to sit back and be silent anymore. Prior to those groups, and it wasn't just ACT UP, there were others, forming, what ended up happening was people would internalize all this, they'd internalize the shame, they would internalize the societal rejection, and people were feeling entirely alone and without agency. And when ACT UP showed up on the scene, and I've got to tell you, it was the radical, angry people who inspired everybody else. They weren't going to put up with this bullshit anymore. We made enough noise that the government and the CDC started to listen. It took years, but we got their attention and people started to do something serious. After having Reagan and his cronies sit in the White House and laugh and make jokes about the gay men who were dying, we finally not only had a purpose, we also had a belief in ourselves. Along about 1994, I went to my doctor at the time, who had been part of Marcus Conant, the famous HIV investigator. He was part of that team. And he said, he called Marcus and said, I have somebody I need to get on this test trial you're doing for the first protease inhibitor, Crixivan. So I was doing a three drug regimen, Crixivan, 3DT, and 3TC, and 4DT. And they put me on that regimen, and my body responded immediately. My T cells went from 105 to 370, and my viral load disappeared within 90 days. At a certain point, probably about 1999, it looked like I might make it. And my attitudes changed, and I gained a much longer term perspective, 98 probably, because that is the point at which I started pursuing some things at work that required a substantial amount of advancement, and I was successful in that. I'm almost 71. I've been on HIV meds since late 1995, so it's 30 years now, and they have done a number on my body. I have problems with my bones, I have problems with my spine. I work out very hard and I eat an incredibly good diet. And yet I have this pot belly. As a result of either HIV meds or HIV or a combination of the two, I've developed fat between the organs inside my abdomen. So, there are the realities of aging with HIV. The onset of late life diseases in HIV positive people, including myself and my husband, is premature. So yes, I am not happy about the impact the meds have had on my body, that HIV has had on my body. But the other side of the coin is I would never consider suing Gilead, because if it hadn't been for Gilead taking a risk, I would be dead, long dead. I determined early on, even well before I seroconverted, I determined as part of my re-engagement with life that I needed to not worry about other people's opinions and I needed to be the man I wanted to be. Well, if there's anything in the world that will reinforce that, it's the fact that you've got 1 or 2 or 3 years to live. You're never going to have that opportunity again. You go be who you are. I don't care that people know that I'm a Leatherman. I don't care that people know that I'm polyamorous and live with both my husband of 33 years and my boy of 11. I've really come to accept the fact that other people's opinions of me are none of my business. My job is to check with my mentors about what I'm doing in life and move forward the way I believe is best.